Hi, I'm Donna from Evoca, and welcome back to the character creation set of tutorials. Today's video will focus on creating the arm of our character and joining it to the torso. We won't create the hand just yet, we'll leave that for another video, as it can be quite complex to create a good looking hand. So we'll start with the arm and how to join that to the body in today's tutorial. To start, we'll open our layers manager, and we'll go to our character layer. We'll select our body so far, and we'll name that CHR Selena body. Okay, so that's just a temporary name, so we know what it is in the scene. And I'll hide that just by clicking on the light bulb. So we're not going to need our body just yet. And then I'll go into the top viewport, this one here where it's actually back at the moment, and I'll just make this the top. So I'll just hit T on the keyboard, or you can go to where the viewport name is and click on that and then select whichever one you want. You can see the shortcut for each of the viewports here at the side, so you just hit either one of those will take you to the viewport that you want, and we'll create a cylinder. So we'll go with just the create tab and we'll hit cylinder, and we will start with something a little lower at the moment, so 8 looks about right. We'll go with 8 for now, and we'll just click on this and drag to create our cylinder in the scene. Now, if I go to the front view and bring this up, you can see that's obviously not the right size, so we'll change the radius to maybe about 5 and the height to about 50. Okay, so we'll adjust that later, but for now this is a good start. So yeah. And we'll convert our cylinder to editable poly, and I'm going to change the hierarchy at the pivot point into the center of the cylinder as well. So I'm going to select the hierarchy tab and go effect pivot only and center to object, and then click off effect pivot only again, so we can go back and edit our polygon, and we'll start moving things around. So position your cylinder roughly around where the elbow is and rotate it into position. So there we go, about there. And in the left viewport, move it back so it sits with the arm that we have as a reference. And then we can start to shape our arm. So just moving these into position. Make sure we're on uniform scale. And just working through and moving the edges into position. So just scaling on the X again, like we did with like we've done before, so just on the X. We don't want to change the front just yet. So I'm just double clicking the edge as well to select the edge loop. And I'm rotating where it's needed as well. Okay, so that's a rough shape of our arm from the side. As I was saying before, if we bring up our zygote body, we can have a look at the muscle structure of our arm. And you can see that we have the deltoid, which is the big shoulder muscle at the top, and how that attaches up here to the back of the scapula and just underneath the collarbone at the front. And underneath that we have the bicep muscles. So there's actually two muscles that make up the bicep muscle. So you've got the short and the long of the bicep. And around the back you've got your tricep again, so the short and long of the tricep. So we'll just keep this open and to the side so we have an idea of the mechanics behind the arm. It helps us make sure we create an arm that's believable. And moving into the front view, we can start to shape it in the front as well. So just moving and rotating into position, bringing everything in so it matches the silhouette of our image plane. So we're just blocking in the rough shape right now. Still not quite happy with this bit down here. That's a bit better. Okay. So we're still following the silhouette in the side of the arm and in the front. So we're looking good. Bring back the shaded view and we'll go into perspective mode. The viewport, and we'll start to flesh this out a little bit. So we have, and it might actually be a bit easier in the front viewport. We know here is the elbow, so we can bring this down to show where the bicep muscle goes down into and joins the lower arm to get that nice furrowing effect. Again, in the side view, you can just bring these back a bit as well, forward a little bit. For our bicep, just bulking out the bicep just a fraction. She is female, so unless your character is a bodybuilder, she may not have the bulk on the bicep. It's a much slimmer shape on women. We're just shaping this to fill out the arm shape. So there we go. Now we'll add an edge ring around here. So select that edge and hit ring and connect. Again, like every other joint that we created, like the knees and the ankles, we need enough geometry around the elbow to hold the shape as we animate. It also helps us flesh out the actual shape of the arm a little bit more as well. Might be easier to do this one in the perspective viewport. So we just want to make that furrow in a little bit and join, and we can bring this one back out and join the silhouette in the viewport. So just showing where that brachialis muscle group rotates down through the arm. And also creating the geometry we'll need to animate Okay, so just looking at the side again, we can just show where the elbow would be. So if we bring back our reference material again, we can have a look at the back of our arm. You can see this bony protrusion, that's our elbow. I think that should be the ulnar bone, I believe. If I click on that, it'll let me know. Yep, the ulnar bone of the forearm, that it just pokes out at the back. So our elbow is just that little bit of bone that pokes out between all the muscle groups. And we can do that by, there's our dip. Okay, our dip is there, so that'll be whereabouts where our elbow is. So just bringing that out so we can see where it is, and then we can create it a little bit later. Right, going back into the front view, might add another ring of geometry just above the elbow, just to help it hold the shape. And we'll do that by first selecting the ring and then hitting connect, and then moving our edges, new edges into position just above the elbow, just tweaking them into shape. Now you can see as I tweak, I try to keep that straight line. That's just keeping everything nice and neat and tidy. I know it sounds a bit strange, but it helps to add to the organic feel of the character. It also makes your life easier when you're trying to find what vert goes where, and it's always good to have a nice neat mesh, especially when you start to skin. And again, just having a look and seeing how we fit with our silhouette. Shape these areas up a little bit more, bringing that in. The back of the arm, you can start to see where the elbow is actually going to show. Just trying to keep the spacing even in order to keep our poly count down, and only adding geometry where we'll need it, so around the joints. Alright, so we'll move on to the shoulder now. So again, this is another area that will need a lot of geometry in. Select that and connect. Now, because the shoulders do so much in the way of movement, at least it seems to be our shoulder, it's not actually. There's a lot of mechanics behind the shoulder. There's a lot of rotation that actually comes in from the collarbone, and when we start to animate, it can be tricky if we don't have enough geometry in this area to hold those movements and to hold the shape of the arm. Again, going into the side, we'll start to round out the shape, and keeping an eye on my reference handy so you can see where all the muscle flowing and how everything works. So we'll have the muscle from the pectoralis that'll come down into here, and we'll have the deltoid that comes down and around and then up from the back. So we need to keep that in mind as we shape our shoulder, and make sure that we have everything there that we need to when we start to skin and animate this area of the body. So I'm just trying to imagine where the deltoid would be flowing into the edge of the arm here, so probably around that area there, I think, will probably be where it ends. Looks about right, so we'll just create another edge loop here where we can show the dip of the deltoid into the side of the arm. And again, we want to follow the muscle structure, the underlying muscle structure, as much as possible in order to get that believable looking animation. So that's why edge flow is so important when we create anything. We want to make sure that our edges are flowing in the right direction. If we start to just place them willy-nilly in order, higgledy-piggledy to get the shape that we want, when we start to move them around with bones and skin, it just becomes an awful mess, and you can end up with like characters that look like they've exploded. Alright, so we can see where the muscle, the deltoid, is flowing into the arm there. Just fleshing it out a little bit. So just continue to shape it. Scrolling out every now and then to make sure we've got the silhouette. And again, in other viewports as well. So we'll do further work on the shoulder when we actually adjust it, attach it to the body. For now, I think we're getting close to looking correct. Go into perspective, turn on shaded, just make sure we've got the you don't want to make it too bulky. I think I might throw a turbo smooth on so I can start to see where the shadows are lying just a little bit better. We'll delete these end caps. Yep. Okay. I think we're almost ready to attach it to the body. Need to just adjust the interior of the arm. So I'm just going to move to the right viewport. And just like the left, I'm just going to tweak this as well to bring things in and just to give the right shape to the arm. Look, keeping an eye on my reference too. So it's actually quite a few muscle groups that make up the inside of the arm. So we can't neglect our armpit. It is created by several muscle groups coming down into the arm. Just continue to move down the arm and tweak as needed. Bring out the bicep just a little bit more, and just the top of the tricep as well, to show where the bulk of that muscle would be. Okay, move back into perspective and we'll have a look. Yep, that's starting to look like an arm. Alright. Now, we'll just further define the elbow here by selecting these three edges and connecting them. I'll be able to bring this in just to exaggerate the elbow just a little bit, just for visual reference. So it stands out when we, from a distance, just so, yep, she does have her elbows. She does not made of plasticine. It also lends itself to the style of the character. Now we may obviously we don't want to leave the end gong here as well, so we'll connect these two vertices there, and we'll go here as well and connect it on this side. And I think we could actually square off this elbow a bit. I think it's starting to look a little bit too. Bring it down. Add a little bit more. Yep, okay. I'll go to user, hit U on the keyboard will take me to user or orthographic view, and I'll hit G to get rid of the grid. It's just to stop that snapping as I rotate around the model in perspective, because you're working on the perspective, so through a camera that once it gets to a certain angle, and once it gets a certain closeness, or you start to clip and you go through the model, and I find it irritating, so I just move to orthographic so I can see what I'm doing. And yeah, what I'll do is I'll actually move this up and weld those there, and then I'll create a bit more of an elbow on the back of the arm here. So we'll connect those and shape this into an elbow just a little bit more. So just to bring that up and probably bring that back down a little bit now. Just to shape that elbow. Yeah, that's better. Makes it look more like a bony structure than a weird point. You can dip that in a little bit. And we'll weld those to the side. Just tweaking these a little bit to give it a better shape and feel. We can bring these into the side a little bit. We're just exaggerating that elbow just ever so slightly, so that when we move out, we can actually see the shape a bit better. It might be a little bit too exaggerated, so we can bring that back in a little bit. And bring this up a little. Just moving around until we've got something that we are happy with. And it looks like our reference and our concept image. Okay. Just bringing that in a little bit more. Rounding off that shape. There we go. Actually dip in at the top of the elbow there. Not too happy with the shadow that's falling on the inside of the arm at this elbow space, so we can just round this off to make the shadow a little bit less. Okay. Alright, so that's pretty much our arm. I'll just do another, turn the turbo smooth off and we'll have another quick look. We'll need another edge loop down here around the wrist. So we'll get this, select this edge and go ring and connect. So again, this is for the same reason as all the other joints, so we have enough information when we start to animate. Now what I've done here as well, so I can move this edge down without screwing up the curve of the arm, I've gone to edit geometry in the modifiers tab, and where it says constraints, I've selected edge. So now when I move the edge, it's only going to move along these edges here. So if I move it in the X, again, it'll try to stay on the edge itself. So just in the Y, just until I can get it into the position, and I'll make sure I go back to none. We might actually lower that a little bit more, so we got enough to create the wrist twist. Bring that in a little. Seems to be an odd highlight here, so I'm just having a look as to what's going on and just tweaking it a little bit so I can get something that's a little bit more pleasing. There we go. Okay. So now that's the beginning of our arms. Now what we need to do is attach that to our body. So we'll bring our arm forward and roughly into position around that shoulder. Not roughly, we need to get it in the right position. So where that shoulder socket is. And we can go to our layer manager again. And we can turn on our body. Now to connect these, we'll delete the turbo smooth by selecting it in the modifier tab and hitting remove modifier, so the little trash can. Same with the body. We'll also do the symmetry on the body as well, so we can join these two up. I will save before we actually do any of the joining, so we have a file to go back to if we stuff up. So just keep Control S, again just increasing the save file since we've put our incremental save on, and we'll start to attach this to the body. Okay, so I'm just having a look at the body, and we're going to prepare it a little bit more for the connection of the arm. So we're going to bring this out, and actually I'll undo that. We'll add an edge loop here. So select that one, hit ring and connect. And I'll just constrain this to the edge so when I move it up it's not going to destroy the shape that I've created before. And I want it to be about there, I think would be a good position for it. So about the center there. So these 4 squares are going to be our armhole, and I'm just going to round this off a little bit at the back. Okay, I'm also going to add, we want to do it like that, we'll do these separately, so we'll connect those two and we'll connect these two just to round out the arm. So make sure our constraint is on none, and just rounding out the base of the arm. Now this means we'll obviously have to add geometry to our arm, but that's okay, we can do that. And again, we don't want to leave these as endgons, so we will connect these 2 edges here and this one here. And we will remove that vertice, because this is where obviously we're going to attach our arm. So we'll grab that polygon and we'll delete it. So just hitting delete on the keyboard, and we'll bring our arm back. And we'll go into the front viewport, and like I mentioned before, we're going to bring this in just so we're around the same width as our hips. So that's our hip there, and that'll be where our arm is. So ever so slightly. So that we got a much more feminine shape going from the neck down into the shoulder, and the shoulder is about the same width as the hip. So yeah, we may need to bring that down just a little bit as well, just fractionally. Nope. We will have to. Now you can see that when I've gone into vertex mode here, you can't actually see my vertices. To fix that, we'll just reset the X forms, and we'll be able to see our vertices again. Max tends to get a little confused sometimes when we have a lot of history in the one shape, so just resetting X forms can fix a lot of problems. So just lengthening the wrist a little bit in the front view. And there we go. So we're going to join our arm now. I'm just going to move into wireframe and move these out a little bit so that we can attach them better to the arm. To make them a little bit easier as we connect them. We'll probably move them back later, so it's just F3 to go into wireframe mode and F3 to go back out. Now we're going to start to connect some of these vertices. Now we can turn our snap tool to make sure that when we right click on the icon, when it comes up, only vertex is selected. So just make sure there's a checkbox in vertex and hit the X to close. If you hit clear all, it'll get rid of everything. So just make sure vertex is selected and then just close it by hitting the X. And then we'll snap these to the nearest vertex that is closest to it. So just by clicking and dragging, this one should probably go to about there. Okay, so we still got holes. That's okay, we can fill those. That's easy enough. I'll turn our snap off and we will go into the inside of the arm so we can see through our model. Select so just connecting those and that one, and again just snapping our vertex down in there to fill the hole. Now that leaves us with n-gongs, so we'll turn off our snap. We can bring up our manage layer again, turn our body off so we can get a better view of our arm, and we will start to not only fix the shape but we'll also fix our n-gongs. So we'll go to cut and we will bring this one down actually into, I'll just undo that, and we will follow this down into the bicep, the deltoid. So just following that shape. there. Making sure that is welded because there we go. Now if I undo that, you can see that it's kind of dark and a bit of a pinch shape is happening. So if we tends to mean that there is a vertex that isn't quite welded. So if we click and drag, we can see that. So if we just weld those, we can see that the shadow is affected, and we know that the weld has been done correctly. So just shaping these now into, not changing these vertexes yet. We will adjust those once we've connected it to the body, but for now, just do a quick check to get everything in shape. So this will be the start of that muscle as it comes down into from the pectoral into the arm, and this will be our armpit here, so this will go up, and we'll need to fix that end gong as well. So just moving these around so we can get the shape, and bringing this back a little bit. Before we cut in, so I'll bring that back as well, just to make room for the new edge that we're going to create for that polygon, or that end gong, sorry. And there we go. So now it'll go up down to cut again, and we'll go from here just into the side of the arm. I think we'll do for now. We can always extend it later if we need to. So just to get rid of that end gong and to create the armpit. Okay, then we're going to have to fix some of this shape up, but we can do that as soon as we attach it to the body. So we'll bring back our main body now, and we'll bring back the main body, and we'll select and attach the arm. Now these vertices aren't welded yet, so if we select the element and we click on it, we can see that there's still separate elements within the same object. So what we want to do is we want to make this all one element. So just do a quick marquee around the vertices that we need to weld, and that is obviously far too high a threshold, so we want to make it really small. So 0.0001 should be enough. And you'll notice down here you've got before and after, so you can see how many vertices will be welded before and after, and make sure that we've got the threshold high enough to weld them, but not high enough to grab the one that's next to it. And then we'll just hit OK. So now when we go to element and we select our mesh, we've got it all as one element, and we can put our symmetry back on. I'm just hitting flip again, and we can also put the turbo mesh on as well, just to see how everything is going. Alright, so we can see that we're going to need quite a bit of adjustment around the shoulder area. It's the beginning, but it's not quite right. So it's cutting a bit too much into the chest, and it's not giving that nice round deltoid muscle. So we'll go back into our vertex, and we'll start to shape these just a little bit more. So keeping our our reference open and starting to shape the deltoid. Now we're going to need, I think, another edge loop through here to define the shoulder better. As you can see, it just goes straight. It's not good. Looks pretty ugly. And I'll bring that out. So, because the deltoid actually goes up and into the scapula, so which is at the back of the shoulder, or is the shoulder, I should say. Bring this down. So rounding out the shoulder, making it look like it actually connects with the arm, the torso of our character. So it's starting to shape up quite nicely. Not quite happy with the connection back here. So bring these down a little bit. Smoothing groups aren't all helping either, so what I'll do is we'll select the element. If I click off, I can actually show you this. You can see at the bottom we can see every face. It's all got a hard edge, and on the arm it's nice and smooth. This is due to smoothing group. So on the body, nearly every edge has its own smoothing group, and on the arm it's just one smoothing group altogether. We'll fix that by selecting the element, so going into element mode and just clicking on the mesh and scrolling down to polygon smoothing groups, and you can see how we've got all the grayed out squares are the different poly groups that are applied to this mesh. Now, because I've got the whole mesh selected, it's grayed out because it's not quite sure which part goes where. It's hard to show it. So if we clear all and we hit 1, we'll get one smoothing group for the entire body, so it starts to sit together as one. And we can go and we can start manipulating again, so we can get the shadows and everything lining up. So we'll have to pull this out. So this would be where this muscle, the latimus dorsi, comes into the arm. So just on men it tends to be this big cobra type looking thing when they've incredibly muscled, but it's much more subtle on a woman. It goes up into the arm. So it can be a little bit tricky because this area tends to be very close to closed in. So there's a lot of rotating around the model to get to the area that we need. And because we added these edges in before, we need to bring these out a little bit just to round off the model. Bring that out, and maybe up a little, just to make the connection with the arm a little bit more believable, and like it's not just stuck on the body So just tweaking and undoing when I'm not quite happy with what I've done. So we'll definitely need to be adding another edge loop through here. This is where it starts to get a bit crowded around the shoulder. So we need the edges there to hold the shape as we move the object when we animate. But it can be a little bit trickier to start to grab each of the vertexes and shape it. Okay, we can always go into the inside of the model as well to start to see where things are lying. So I'll bring this up and bring this down ever so slightly. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. We want to define the armpit. We don't want to have it go through the arm. Okay. We can cut in the back of the deltoid as well, just so we can have a visual reference of where that muscle is. And we can continue to shape that as well. Then we'll add this edge loop. So hitting the ring, edge, and then ring, and then, oh, not cut, connect. There we go. So just defining the shoulder area a little bit more. And go back to our front view, make sure that we got the shape that we needed. We'll just bring this up a little bit. Bring this down a little bit just to define where the shoulder meets the neck, or the neck, that muscle there. You do pick up the muscle names, but they can be hard to pronounce, so it's often easier just to refer to it what the common name is. Just rounding out this shoulder. Okay, I think we're almost done. Okay, let's have another look at the rounded view. Yep. So we're going to have to adjust again around the front here when we add the chest, but for now we've got a pretty good arm connection to the main of the body. We're starting to look. Now you can see here there's a bit of pinching where those triangles are. Now this is because of the turbo smooth, and it's also why we tend to keep to quads as much as possible. But since it's on the inside of the arm, it will be hidden a lot as well. But we can always tweak it a little bit to see if we can't fix the pinching effect that we're getting, just by shifting the vertices ever so slightly, because we don't want to knock it off the silhouette of the character. But at the same time, since it's hidden, we're not going to worry too much about it. Okay, so there we go. That is our character with her arms attached. Next we'll move on to the breast.